Good, perfect. All right. Well, again, thank you. And thank you, Leslie, for inviting me. Leslie and I have known each other for many years. I came out and worked with Leslie at and did a session at the New School many years ago. And my work there in New York was really gratifying, and I'm really happy to be back, even if it is virtually. One thing I'd love to add to that introduction is that I started my career at the University of Minnesota in the early 1980s. And I taught in one of the very first international teaching assistance programs in the country. Some of the people that you might associate with that field kind of started back there, Colleen Myers and Jan Smith and others. And so I had the opportunity to do that work first as a graduate student and then as a teaching specialist. And that's where I got really interested in teaching English, but I'm teaching pronunciation, but specifically teaching for intelligibility and also teaching in context, because each of the teaching assistants I worked with was from a different discipline. It could have been, in the sciences, humanities. And so we were really working to help them build that intelligibility. So that's been a topic of interest to me for many years. And then I moved more into adult education, working with teachers in the context of, community-based programs or adult basic education. So as you saw in the chat, we've invited you to share who you are, just a little bit about yourself, and specifically what you teach, where you teach, what levels you teach. Are you teaching mostly online? Are you teaching mostly face-to-face? And I know there are a lot of you here, and a lot of things will be coming into the chat as we get started here. So please do take a look at what others are sharing with you. So we've got, I'm just going to kind of skim through here as they come in as well. But again, where you teach, what you teach, and then is it mostly in person or online? Thank you for starting us off, Gloria. But please, others, please jump in right away and tell us who's here and what you do. And I see level 1, level 2. So so far some beginning level. Okay, advanced. Okay, I think you'll see that what I'll work on today is going to be relevant regardless of level and context and background of your learners, hopefully. But what I invite you to do is think, okay, Betsy's sharing an example that maybe isn't the content I would use. It's going to need some tweaks, but I think the strategies you'll find are applicable at a wide range of levels and in a wide range of contexts. So we're going to think a little bit about the background and research about teaching to intelligibility for adult English learners, the importance of intelligibility, and then we'll spend most of our time looking at what I call discovery-based activities. What are those exactly in the context of working with adult multilingual learners? And I hope to save time for questions, as Justin said. But to kick us off, you'll need the chat again. Okay, keep the chat handy. Type yes in the chat if learners in your classes have high stakes interactions in English. Do your learners have high stakes interactions in English? Okay, so yeah, okay. Yes, absolutely, right? And that could be things like if they work in, especially work in medical fields, or they work in customer service, or they have interactions at work that are high stakes. Do they face breakdowns in communication at times because of their pronunciation? Yep. Okay. How about they come with a variety of pronunciation needs? Do your learners come with a variety of pronunciation needs, right? And especially now, I don't know about your context, but I don't know if you know this about Minnesota. We have the largest number of refugees per capita in the United States. And we have more than 160 home languages among families in Minnesota. So it's a very linguistically diverse state. And so this means that in any given English language classroom, we're going to have a real wide variety of needs. And we'll see why in a minute here, why I've decided then to focus on a particular area of pronunciation. Do your students express a desire to work on pronunciation? Yes, okay, yeah. Someone said that students are nervous about speaking. Okay, good, thank you. All right, so just a little bit of background. And One of the things that I realized early on in my career that I was super lucky in my MA TESOL to have a lot of background and coursework in phonetics and phonology. But I soon found out as I worked with other teachers that if they did a certificate, a shorter credential, they didn't necessarily have that specialized training. And so just think about for yourself if that's true or not. So kind of as a backdrop and why we're here today is that sometimes there is a gap in your teacher knowledge and lack of preparation that you need in order to teach pronunciation effectively. And that's not no one's fault, right? So that's one thing that we want to think about and why it's really important for you to learn about and think about teaching pronunciation for intelligibility and in context with adult learners. The demands of today's world are really, really high. We know that, from many, many sources. And one of the parts of meeting communicative demands in today's world is being understood, right? And with that is being able to gain intelligible pronunciation. So I keep using the word intelligible. We'll get to that in more detail in a minute, but I'm not talking about accent elimination or even really accent reduction. There are many varieties of English that are highly understandable, but we want to help learners achieve a level of pronunciation where there aren't undue constant breakdowns in communication. And the higher the demands are in today's world, the more important that is. We also know that learning about pronunciation as teachers and then teaching pronunciation in a way that's highly integrated can be highly effective and beneficial. In Minnesota, we had a study circle for teachers on how to integrate pronunciation instruction on a regular basis. Well, then my colleagues, Andrea Eckelberger, Suzanne McCurdy, and I, we actually did a study of our study circle. And we took a look at the outcomes as the results of having the study circle with the teachers. And there was wonderful benefit to teachers deepening their understanding of different features of pronunciation that were very teachable, understanding that mostly teaching more suprasegmental features, things like stress, rhythm, intonation, was much more important than teaching the difference between b and v or d and or th and the, or the contrast that we often see taught. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. But we found that this idea of integrated pronunciation instruction, where teachers made it a routine, part of their daily practice, was extremely beneficial to the learners themselves, okay? And then I've always been a proponent of highly inductive, contextualized pronunciation instruction. In other words, not just like teaching a rule. And I feel the same way about teaching grammar. I know Leslie and I share that passion. We've talked about this in the past. So teaching through discovery-based learning, teaching in context, having learners see examples of a particular pronunciation feature and then lead them to notice it before you expect them to practice it. Well, there was a great article that came out in 2023 that sort of affirmed the benefits of that. And Martin and Sippel found that it was particularly helpful with those items that are sort of rule-based, and also those that are suprasegmental features. And those are the things we're going to focus on today, okay? So when is intelligible pronunciation instruction important? Well, for high stakes workplace communications, I've already mentioned this, but following instructions, giving instructions, customer interactions, team meetings. Also, we're going to think about, in my examples today, how this relates to power, agency, and professional identity. So power and agency come with clarity, right? We really want learners to feel confident that they can get their ideas across. They may be taken more seriously. They might feel more confident when they feel like they can understand the certain features of spoken language and then apply those, effectively in their lives. So we'll see also how you can do activities with learners to advocate for themselves. The other thing to think about is intelligibility is so important with interactions with unfamiliar listeners. So for example, a one-time phone call where someone isn't familiar with a variety of English is much more demanding and difficult than somebody you hear on a routine basis. So when you have learners who might be working in customer service, or they're going to have a lot of demands of having to speak, let's say over the phone or with one-time communication with either customers, clients, coworkers, community members, it's really important to help them work on their intelligibility, okay? And then finally, we're going to see that there are some linguistic features that are tied to meaning. So for example, when we change the stress in a word, it could change the meaning of the word. We'll see how prosody, or how we group words together when we're reading, can have a big impact on fluency, but can also help learners understand text. So there's a connection between pronunciation, intelligibility, and then meaning making. Okay, so that's just a little bit of background to lay the foundation for today. We're going to spend most of our time now looking at sample activities, and you're going to have a chance then to engage with the activities using the chat a lot. Okay, somebody in LaGuardia says they're not getting audio, so I don't know if you maybe already saw that in the chat. I hope everything's okay now. All right, so the first thing we're going to think about is how in every lesson you can look at it critically and say, hey, what is a pronunciation feature that I might integrate into my lesson or my unit today or this week? And the idea here is that we want to let the content of our lesson dictate what pronunciation features to teach. Okay, some of you may be lucky enough, or you might have a unique pronunciation course where you build a whole syllabus around different high need pronunciation areas with your learners. But in most adult education programs, for those of you working, in adult ed with newcomer refugee students, or working in community programs, we have integrated skills classes, right? And pronunciation is just one of the many things that we teach. So what we want to do, though, is make sure it is part of what we teach. I spend a lot of time visiting adult education classes here in Minnesota, and I've spent time working with teachers around the country. And I have to say, I don't see a lot of systematic integration. So I want to show you what that might look like. All right. So imagine that you're doing a unit on health and wellness. You've worked on using online tools to make appointments. You've been working on interpreting and electing insurance options, either through the job or state program. And now you're turning to the theme of how our activity level can impact our health. Okay? The students did a reading earlier on the dangers of a sedentary lifestyle. So now you've chosen to use this authentic informational text from the US Census Bureau on the average time spent on leisure activities for adults in the United States. Okay, so this is kind of it's a very integrated skills lesson and unit. And working with this particular text, the visual text, we're going to work on interpreting pie charts, leisure activity vocabulary. We're going to work on comparative forms. For example, people spend far more time watching television than socializing with others. The students in this lesson, and it's more of a unit, a multi-day unit, they interview their classmates about their personal leisure activities, they collect data, and then they create and present findings in a graph, okay? So as much as I would love to show you this entire lesson plan, this gives you a snapshot of what we're working on with this unit. And I asked myself, well, there are all these words that students are going to have to use over and over, a lot of multi-syllabic words, that maybe are worthy of some time and attention. Okay, so what is it about those multisyllabic words that might help learners become more intelligible? It's working on the word stress of the words. So I'm going to invite you to go to your chat, and I'll say a word from our chart, from the pie chart, and indicate what pattern you hear. What's the number of the pattern you hear? We'll do one together. How about computer? Computer. What stress pattern do you hear? Bump, 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 bump. Good. Pattern number one. Great. Perfect. Okay. Next one. Socializing. Socializing. Okay, here I see some differences of opinion. Is it 2 or is it 3? Bum, bum, bum. How many syllables? Socializing. There's 4 syllables, so it has to be number 3, right? So the big bubble is our loud, clear, stress syllable. And then the small bubbles are the other syllables. Okay, how about relaxing? Relaxing. Mm-hmm. Bum, bum, bum. So number one, right? Notice how I complement the bubbles with clapping and humming, okay? So making it kind of multimodal, help trying to really appeal to different preferences of learners. Okay, and one more, participating, participating. Bum, 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 bum. Number five, good, good. All right. It's really important to work on accurate stress placement, as this can really, really affect intelligibility. So imagine I say this word, type in the chat what word you hear, okay? Comedy. Okay. All right. Now, what word do you hear? What do you think? What word do you think I'm trying to say? But I'm still going to say it the same way. I'm on the search comedy. I'm on the search comedy. Okay. Oh, you mean committee. Oh, committee. So if the stress, there are many words where just misplacing the stress on the wrong syllable can actually change the meaning of the word. And there might be contexts where either one could be feasible. Now here we saw when you heard what I really meant, you could say, oh, you mean committee, not comedy. But if you were to place stress on the first syllable of committee, it would sound like comedy, right? So pronunciation is, yes, so important. So then you could go on from there to practice the words together with the students, with looking at the sorting, how the words were sorted, have them work with you together to now practice saying the words from the lesson. So this is something I just I routinely say, okay, what is a feature that is worthy of attention? And in this particular lesson, there were some other features as well. For example, we could work on emphatic stress. People spend far more time watching television than socializing with others. And we really want to use emphatic stress there. It's really shocking if you look back at the table. It's like people spend, 5 more times time watching TV than socializing with others. Or you could work on contrastive stress when they're doing the interviews with their classmates. Do you spend more time watching TV? Socializing, watching TV or socializing, okay? So think about, again, look at your lessons and think what would be worth attention. And also remember, you notice then that the discovery-based element here is that I don't tell the learners the pattern. I don't tell them, I don't tell them which stress pattern it is. I ask them. I draw their attention to it by having them notice and having them discover it for themselves. So the next sample is from a project, and maybe, I don't know if New York State worked on the Teaching the Skills That Matters in Adult Education. I don't know if you were a TSTM state, if you had a cohort that went to DC or did the work online. But this is one of the few Octave-funded links initiatives that's actually still available online. You know that many things were taken away when links kind of shut down with the current administration. So I think it's nice to have a few things that we can draw our attention to. So the Teaching the Skills That Matter initiative, you can visit it. I have all the materials there, but it looks at different skills like navigating systems, critical thinking, all sorts of kind of, sort of a newer version of like 21st century skills, but also in different content areas like civics education, health literacy, financial literacy, digital literacy. So I wanted to share my thinking as I was planning the civics education units. I was in charge of that toolkit, and this is a lesson on community engagement, where the students were going to gather information from their classmates about their community actions. They're going to analyze data, again, like in that last sample, graph it, present information to others. So it's really a rich integrated skills lesson, but they're also, as you see, my very first language objective is speak about social change categories with clear pronunciation and word stress, and listen, and then other language objectives, listen for specific information, and accurately present data using quantifiers and reporting language. So here was my thinking. We're working on different ways to be engaged in our community. So for example, volunteerism, voting, political activity, social responsibility. And we invite the learners through for some examples that I shared of what we do in our communities, help my kids at school. I wrote letters for Vote Forward. What about you? What are some ways that you're engaged in working in your community? All right. Then the learners in this lesson are going to do a 1-question survey activity where they are interviewing others. How likely are you to volunteer at your child's school? So here would be a great opportunity to work on emphatic stress. I'm very likely, or I'm not at all likely, or how likely are you to give to charitable causes? So you could think about that. Think about the activities themselves that you're creating or using, and what are some features that could take some, that could merit some attention. In this lesson, I have all the materials at that QR code I shared. And again, or by the way, I'll be sharing my slides so you'll have access to all these materials. But again, like the last one, I invite the learners to think about what stress pattern do they hear in the words from the unit before they're going to have to be doing all these practice activities, communicating with each other. So we look at fundraiser, responsibility or responsible, community. So again, they sort the words according to the pronunciation. So it's exactly like the last sample I gave you, but I just wanted to show you how easy it is to integrate this. You don't even have to have materials or handouts. You can just have bubble patterns that you draw on the board and then systematically think about those features and make sure you take the time to integrate those as a routine in your instruction. Okay, now we're going to turn to specific examples or examples that look at specific pronunciation patterns or rules that are teachable. All right, so this first one is in the context of a family literacy class. Family literacy, if you're not familiar, are those programs where the parents and children, it could be grandparents, mothers, fathers, caregivers, go to a class while their little ones, usually, under kindergarten age, are there as well. And they go to like a play group type of, with like preschool activity, and the parents are learning language. I don't know if we have a few left in Minnesota. We don't have a lot of them left. But I wanted to be authentic and share an actual example from a family literacy program I was working with. And then we'll see how you can do the same activity with other content. Okay. Here I'm going to have some volunteers here. And I'm going to call on a few of you to do this. And Leslie and I will kick us off. But imagine in a family literacy program, oftentimes the content are those things that parents might need to do with their young children, like go school shopping. So we're shopping and we got this list from school of things we need, okay? So for example, we're going shopping and we need to buy notebooks. All right, now I'm gonna start, I'll popcorn to somebody, okay? So if you get popcorned too, you may open your mic to respond. And we want to remember our list. We don't want to forget the item. So you need to say every item that was mentioned before you.
Oh.
So okay, yeah. But Leslie, yours going to be second, so it'll be easy. Number 6 or 7 it'll be harder. So now the rest of you, though, you have a job. Okay. So if you were doing this with learners in your English language classroom, you'd have some learners who are reading and reciting the list, practicing the list. And then the others, your job is to see what pattern, if any, what pronunciation pattern do you notice with all of these words, all of these terms. All right, so Leslie, we're going shopping and we need to buy notebooks.
We're going shopping and we need to buy notebooks and a pencil sharpener.
Okay, you get to choose somebody, popcorn to somebody.
Kathy Gray.
We're going shopping and we need to buy notebooks, a pencil sharpener, did you say? And index cards.
Great. Okay, Kathy, who's next?
Pamela. Pamela?
hold on. Okay, we're going shopping and we need to buy notebooks, pencil sharpener, and index card, and we need book covers.
Okay. All right, Pamela, who's next?
Wendy. Wendy,
Okay.
you're up.
Okay. We're going shopping and we need to buy notebooks, a pencil sharpener, index cards, book covers, and a glue stick.
Okay. So does one more brave soul want to try? Let's do one more. Choose one more person, Wendy.
Andrea?
Hi. We are going shopping and we need to buy notebooks.
Now, when I do this in person, people
I know.
mime. People can kind of gesture and mime. So if anyone can help there.
A pencil sharpener,
Nice.
book covers, index cards, a pencil case, and a backpack.
Thank you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So when I'm in the class, actually, I have students stand in a circle. I give each of them one of these words on a card, and then they usually a talking stick. Like they'll say one, and then they'll hand it over to a second person who then has to repeat. And it's always really fun. And by the last person, they're laughing and trying to remember, but people help them. So people gesture like backpack, book cover, pencil sharpener, as you did so well. All right. So what I'd love to hear is from others, what pattern, if any, what pattern did you hear? Go ahead in the chat. Okay, stress. Okay. Okay, good. So the first word, right? Stress on the first word. Great. Now, if I were teaching online with students, and I meant to say this, I apologize, I would invite the students to write their answer in the chat without posting right away, okay? So without posting right away so that they all have a chance to respond. I'll remember that next time I invite you to put something in the chat, okay? So the rule is, right, stress the first word of a compound. Now, I saw one or two people said syllable, but that's not quite accurate. It happens to be in all of our examples here, but as the rule, it's the first word. So you could have a compound noun where the first word doesn't necessarily have stress on the first syllable, right? So it's when you have a compound noun is two words, when they come together to make a new word with a new meaning. So for example, paper plus clip is paperclip, okay? Now, for let's just say in another context, like a blue table is just an adjective describing the table, right? But when what's a compound noun would be a coffee table. So the two words together have a separate new meaning. It's almost like it's a dictionary entry, if you want. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Betsy, okay, this is kind of fun, cool. Somebody said they really loved this was a nice concrete activity, but maybe this isn't a content area, a topic area that would be as useful for your students. So you could do any number of things. You could do kitchenware, you could do home furnishings, you could do exactly the same activity, but you could frame it as I got a new apartment. I'm going to go to the store, whether it's they go to garage sales, thrift stores, Macy's, wherever, and here are some things we need. Or just thinking, I got a new apartment and here are the things I need, okay? Or kitchenwares. It could be we're going shopping, we need to buy these. But the other thing is that take a look at what your learners' jobs are. Or do some of you maybe work or work with job readiness or job, any of you working in manufacturing, for example? Like we have some adult ed programs in Minnesota where we go out and work in the manufacturing company to teach English. Oftentimes there will be very specialized vocabulary that might have a pattern like this, okay? So just do a careful analysis. Or in medical English, you might see a lot of specialized and kind of recurrent pronunciation patterns that you could be teaching to your students, okay? So the other thing, yes, you know, Mary, you noted, and I was going to ask anything else you noticed when we're doing a list. Did you, yeah, when you're doing a list, you pause after each item, right? We need, let me go back to, oh, I must have turned my, are you guys seeing red marks on my slides? Because I think I turned the editing thing on without knowing it, the annotation. Let me just go back here a second. We need a glue stick, backpack, notebooks, pencil case, pencil sharpener, book covers, and index cards. Notice that at the end of my utterance, then my intonation goes down at the end. But when I'm making a list, I have rising, 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 falling. So that's my thinking. That's how I look at any lesson. I think when I'm working on speech production and accuracy and being intelligible, what are the features that I could just readily integrate into my class? Okay. All right. So can I just say, Leslie, are we seeing red annotations on your screen or is that just mine?
No, it's on ours too. But
Yeah,
it's not.
yeah. I think I hit it by mistake before. So, oh gosh, how do I want to get rid of those?
It's not stopping us.
Well, I know, but still, let me get the eraser. Here, erase. Okay. Okay, I think I got it. All right, so I'll just keep talking this through. So now we want to think about how to highlight text features when we're working on literacy instruction. So we're doing a lot of reading and writing instruction in our adult education programs, right? But why not use that as an opportunity to do the same thing and say, hey, is there any pronunciation feature in here that would be worth attention? And there often is, but you want it to, you know, it should be a reasonable choice, obviously. Most of us, I imagine, I'm sure many of you do, you teach the ED ending pronunciations. Raise your hand, wave, right? How many of you teach, right? We all do, right? Well, why not embed it in something that we're doing already? And in this particular lesson, the learners are going to be working to write a short biography about somebody of note in their lives. It could be a famous person, it could be a family member. And to start off my lesson, we're using this very simple mentor or model text, okay? It's a very short biography of Rosa Parks. Now, we would use this text first and foremost for meaning, like we would do pre-reading activities to activate their schema, background knowledge about the civil rights movement. We would read it for meaning. I have a graphic organizer that I use with this unit where the students organize information from her childhood, her profession, her activism. So there are many things we would do like you would do in any good reading lesson, okay? But once we've really worked on the text for meaning, let's add this pronunciation feature. I invite the learners to highlight all of the words that end in ED. Okay, so we refused, lived, started, marched, organized, etc., etc. All right. Now, if I were teaching face-to-face, and I saw some of you are teaching face-to-face, some of you are teaching online, so you can see how this is readily doable in either environment. If I were in class, we would project this chart, okay? And invite the learners to take the highlighted words now and then record them under the column of how the ending of the verb sounds. But we're going to use the chat, which you could do in your online class. So I'll say the word, and please indicate, is it pattern 1, 2, or 3? Does the verb end with a d sound, a t sound, or id? And I want you to know, like, really listen to the sound. So what is the sound you hear at the end? So for example, worked. Is that 1, 2, or 3? Great. Inspired. Inspired. So it's the, okay? How about refused? Refused.
D.
D. 1. Good. All right. How about included? Included. Good. So now we have that third one, the id. We add a whole syllable. How about let's see. How about started? Started. Okay. Continued. Continued. Okay, we're back to pattern 1. Right. Right. So we've done the sorting. So either the students, as I said, they could write them up on the board and working together, like, talk together and they'd work together, or do what we just did. And so when do we add that extra syllable? I meant to not have that bubble there. You all know this. I know you all know this, but it's getting the learners to notice, when do we add a syllable? It's only after words ending in t or d. Okay? Arrested, wanted, included, needed. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I have plenty of students who want to say work it, march it, help it. Is that right? And what I find is I have a lot of students who have aha moments when they see this. When they really see this, like, really? It's not marching? No. I don't worry about teaching them about voiceless and voiced final consonants. I don't go into the phonetics and phonology of it that you and I might talk about linguistically. But as long as they know to only add a syllable when the word ends in t or d, that already is like light bulbs go off. Okay? So again, using the text, using the opportunity to teach something we often teach, and I think most good curricula do incorporate it within a context, but it's just, again, it's something we can do so readily in our literacy instruction as well. You could do the same thing on a text that's maybe talking about somebody's routines, and it's the simple present tense, and you could do the same thing with those S endings that change depending on the environment, okay? But again, the idea is getting the learners to discover and see what they notice about the sounds. Okay. So Justin and Leslie, I trust that if any questions, I'm trying to monitor, and we've got some nice comments in the chat. I hope people are noticing as well. Just do let me know if you see any questions as I'm going along. But as my timing, I think we'll have time at the end. So, all right. So now the next one is in a work readiness class. Okay, for a work readiness class, we're going to look at another feature that's a discrete pronunciation rule that's teachable. Okay, and those are so great when we can do that. This is the activity. This is the sample activity. The students are going to think about the qualities of an effective employee. So rate the importance of these skills for the job of preschool teacher or nursing assistant. Now, you would use jobs for this activity. You would choose jobs that your learners are actually seeking, okay? Choose a job, whatever the jobs are that they're seeking. And so you could even give them a version of it like this, where you just put a blank and they decide what job they want to think about, okay? All right? So I wouldn't expect them to be able to order how many are there? There are over 10. Maybe what are the top 3? Come to consensus about the top 3. And you can imagine that would generate a lot of good discussion, a lot of good debate. Now we're going to look at a feature. We're going to look at all these vocabulary words. And notice that they all end with different suffixes, okay? Okay, so, and we'll get to that in a moment, actually. But for now, we invite the students to sort these words from the activity into the 5 categories. Now, I don't know if Kelly is here today. Leslie, you said she might be, and she was at my session at TESOL. And when we were at TESOL, I did this session face-to-face. Hi, Kelly. Do you remember I had these bubble patterns as signs?
Yes.
And people stood around the room and just held the sign. And then I would call out the word and the audience would point to the pattern. So, or you could give students one of these words on a card and they go walk up next to the pattern. There are many different ways you could do that. But you can also do it the same way we've been doing it earlier today in the chat. I'm not going to do that with you right now because in a moment I'm going to have you do another thinking task and use the chat. But so they've sorted, now they've sorted. Let's say they've sorted the words, okay? So we have ambitious, ability, education, academic, energetic, communication, productivity, managerial. All of these words end with a suffix. Now, in the chat, please do not reply until I say go, okay? In the chat, what suffixes do you see? What suffixes do you see? I'll give you about 10 seconds. Well, I bet in 10 seconds, with all of you present, we're going to have lots of examples. When I say go, send your message. Go. Okay. Us, shin, itty, eel, right? Thank you. Very nice. Okay. We have, yeah, so ick, ickle, eel, absolutely. Thank you. What do you notice? Again, don't put your answer, don't post it in the cell until I say go. What do you notice about the word stress for these words? Kind of think about, is there a word stress rule that would apply to all of them? Okay, take a moment. Don't post your reply until I say go. Okay. And in a classroom, would have students turn and talk, consult with one another, help each other. If you were, you could put students in breakout rooms at this stage in your lesson. If you're teaching online, they could go into breakout rooms and answer these questions. Okay. Go. What do you think? Right. Exactly. So I see a couple. So right. So the accurate response is on the syllable preceding the suffix. It's not necessarily the second to the last, okay? It's the syllable before the suffix, okay? So if you look, itty, it's, okay, so for example, think about it. If you have the word able, but you add itty, it moves over to ability. Or you have a word like mobile, but when you add itty, it moves over to mobility, okay? All right. So here's the response. And again, I will be sharing my slides. I won't read all this to you, but this is a really productive rule because it shows the learners why the stress might shift within a word, okay? It's very systematic. For the linguists in us, these are the Latinate suffixes. I would never say that to the learners. They don't need to know that. But these are the Latin origin suffixes where this happens. It doesn't happen when you add ship, like penmanship, or if you add like other suffixes that are of Germanic origin, it doesn't happen. But with the Latinate suffixes, it happens. So you can just talk about it in terms of put the stress before these suffixes. My husband is an engineer. He's a multilingual learner. He speaks many languages. He grew up bilingual in Iran, French, and Persian. He started learning English very young. He's extremely proficient. But word stress is still the thing that I often give him feedback on. And I remember when I taught him this rule about, 20, 30 years ago, he just loved it because it was so productive in his field of engineering. So think about that. So think about, and you could use, vocabulary that's appropriate to your students' level and context and what their needs are, and still teach a version of this rule, maybe with fewer words. This was pretty advanced, but you could teach it with lower level students with fewer items, definitely. Okay, now we're going to move to prosody. And I want to think about how you add prosody to your reading lessons. Okay, so by prosody, I'm talking about the thought grouping, pausing between thought groups, the intonation contours, the general rhythm of your speech. In adult education, I know it's very, very popular to do read alouds, where the teacher reads aloud, the learners follow along, which is a good practice for helping learners to connect what the word looks like and what it sounds like. I often see teachers having learners read cold, though, like just giving the students the text and having them read out loud right away. I'm just not a big fan of that because they're often stumbling over the words. They're not really making meaning. So my ask to you is to please work on meaning first, and at a minimum do some sort of teacher-led and then choral reading, so that by the time the learners are asked to read aloud, They're not approaching the text for the very first time. And one of the features that can really help us with making meaning of a text is how and when do we pause, okay? How do we make thought groups within a text? Now, I don't see a lot of attention to this. This is very commonly taught in intensive English program pronunciation courses or speaking classes, but I don't see it a lot in adult education curricula or materials. But it's really simple to add. Listen to me read this text, and where do you notice the pauses? Okay, where do you notice pausing?
Caregivers are people who take care of someone in their family or a close friend. Sometimes they take care of someone who has problems moving, eating, or taking a shower.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so Leslie, thank you for putting the note. We know it's a little quiet. We put our sound at our end as high as possible. I hope you could get a general sense of that, the patterns. But when do we pause? Is it just anywhere? Do we just stop and pause anywhere we like? Or is there some rhyme or reason, right? Okay, adjective clauses, perfect. Where there's pronunciation, perfect. Exactly, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, so first of all, before I get to those specifics, when we think about thought groups, it's those short pauses we make between groups of words. There's usually one main idea per group of words. It's usually one stressed word within that. If you have a thought group, there's one mainly stressed word within the thought group. And it helps listeners process meaning more easily, okay? So again, really worth our attention with adult learners. So in the case of our reading, let's listen to it again. Listen to it again, and now see if you agree with these pauses and see what they achieve for us.
Caregivers are people who take care of someone in their family or a close friend. Sometimes they take care of someone who has problems moving, eating, or taking a shower.
Okay, so you and I,
Caregivers are people who take care of someone in their
Okay, we know all the terminology like relative clauses, adjective clauses. That's great. When I work with students with interrupted prior formal schooling, like many of our refugee students, I can't make assumptions about what grammatical terminology they know. They might know it intuitively, but they may not have the terms to talk about it. So you notice how I have terms that are very user-friendly, like a complete idea, adds new information, right? It introduces an explanation. So if your students have the grammar knowledge, absolutely leverage that and name it. But you don't have to have that grammar knowledge to work on these thought groupings with students, okay? So we can add practice on prosody with our students by having them listen and mark the pauses. We could listen and mark words that are longer and louder in each thought group. We can listen and mark the intonation contours within a thought group. And then they can make those connections, as you noted, to the punctuation. Notice what happens. We pause where there are commas. And before a comma, we'll often have rising intonation. And then at the period, we'll have falling intonation. Okay? All right. Great. Thank you. So my last example is on emphasis as a tool for self-advocacy. So emphasis as a tool for self-advocacy. So emphasis is really helpful in either correcting, clarifying, or setting boundaries. And these are really core acts of agency, aren't they? We're going to look at three sample conversations, one on making appointments, one that's related to work, and one that's related to school or talking about our children, okay? Listen to these two versions, version A and version B, at the workplace, where an employer and an employee are discussing a scheduling error. So think about what's the difference between version A and version B.
You're scheduled for Saturday.
I think maybe this is wrong. I asked for Friday.
You're scheduled for Saturday.
I asked for Friday, not Saturday. This is not what we discussed.
Okay. So just in any words, like what really stood out? What's the difference between version A and version B? Let me ask you, for example, who has more power in version A? Would you say the boss or the employee? The supervisor, right? And how about in version B? Maybe, yeah, firm yet appropriate. Yeah, nice, nice. The employee is taking on a little bit more ownership, right? And is advocating for themselves by using emphatic stress. Let's listen. So with the learners, then I would invite them, and you could do this, a turn and talk if you're face to face or in breakout rooms on Zoom. Have them listen and then have a discussion. Who has more power in each version? Which words were stressed in version B? And how does the employee's role change? And then give them some practice. Have them try the new dialogue, the difference between version A, but particularly version B, because that's what we're aiming for. How about this one?
Your appointment is next month.
Oh, I thought it was sooner. Maybe there's a mistake.
Your appointment is next month.
My appointment is this week, not next month. I need to be seen now.
Okay, all right. Okay, so it's again, yeah, thank you, Leslie. It's a great way to it's a great way to teach emphatic stress for a very, very immediate and kind of important high stakes communicative purpose, right, in their lives. And again, a way for them to advocate for themselves. And then here's the oh, that's the same one. I'll just one more for customer service. This happens a lot.
The charge is correct.
Oh, okay. I just thought it seemed high.
The charge is correct.
This charge is incorrect. I was charged for 2 items, not 1.
Okay. So I kind of laugh when I read this because have you ever heard the expression Minnesota nice? Have you heard about that? How people think Minnesotans are way too nice and we're not direct enough. And I was thinking, I know a lot of Minnesotans who could benefit from this practice because they don't necessarily stand up for themselves. Okay. All right. So so with each of those conversations, I would invite the students to do that same kind of practice. Though and have the same set of questions. Again, what's the difference between A, the more neutral one, and B, the more agentive or attentive? I'm not sure where to put the stress on that. Okay, and have them, really notice, and then you can give them a chance to practice this in whatever scenario is useful for them. So, for example, here's the scenario of, working with your child's teacher, let's say at a school conference. If you don't have parents, if you don't have learners who are parents, you wouldn't use this. But you could think of a situation like at work with a supervisor or with a neighbor, an issue with a neighbor. And they have the neutral version on the left, and then you invite them to practice. But first, underline the words you might stress to add emphasis. First do that, and then practice with a partner. Okay? All right. So another thing you can add to this, after they've highlighted those key words like now, not, specific, options, you could teach them some phrases like soft, medium, and strong. Like I'm wondering if, or I'd like, or I need. This is not what I asked for. They could practice these dialogues with different levels of emphasis for different contexts, because indeed there are different situations where you might use different levels of directness and emphasis. And then the important part and kind of the discovery-based part is always including that reflection. So when would you use strong emphasis at your child's school? When might you choose a softer approach, right? So really engaging the learners and having that time for reflection. So it's time for us to close in a few minutes. So I'm going to do a combination of 2 things. Please feel free to pop into the chat with any inspirations just now. Thought, oh, yes, I've tried that. That worked really well. What are you committed to trying that you haven't thought of before? So it's going to just share out with us as well as any questions you have. So we have 4 minutes, so that's not too bad. And you can certainly email me. I have my email on the last slide if you have follow-up questions. But I'll turn it over to you now with any questions, comments, inspirations that you'd like to share with the group. And feel free to use the chat or open your mics. Or Leslie or Justin, if you saw anything come in that I missed in the chat too, you can direct me to those. Yes, using bubbles works at all levels, right? Exactly. And it's just so transparent. And any new set of words, yes, okay, great. Working on the meaning before reading aloud. The bubble piece, I wanted to share a quick anecdote. I worked with teachers from India on an exchange program with the State Department. They came to our campus for the summer, and I taught about this. And Debashish, one of the teachers, said, but we have very different stress patterns on words oftentimes in Indian English. I said, indeed. So teach your stress patterns. It doesn't have to be my stress patterns. So the year after, I got to do follow-up workshops, and I went to his middle school in Calcutta with 80 boys in his middle school boys' school. And the little boys had little torn pieces of paper with bubble patterns that they had drawn with him. And so when he taught new vocabulary, he'd have the kids take out the bubble pattern to show what the word should sound like. So indeed, it can be used with any level. Yeah. So let's see. Yes, well, absolutely, where you do need to consider the cultural considerations, right? Absolutely. The pragmatics cross-culturally can be very, very different. And of course, you want learners to learn to stand up for themselves, but within their comfort zone. And I would never prescribe people. So thank you for bringing that up, Kathy. Thank you. Yeah. Anything else? Feel free, if you'd like to share with the mic on, please feel free to do that. You like the dialogue with, changing the meaning or changing based on context.
There is a question from Heidi. How do you recommend that students learn stress patterns in general, not just words with suffixes?
Oh, absolutely. My first examples was just integrating practice with just general stress patterns with everything you teach. And then, right, remember my first example was my unit on community engagement and my unit on leisure activities. And I said, okay, look at all these multisyllabic words. Let's teach word stress. In a beginning level class, I would include the practice with word stress. For me, if you've ever read the work of Kinsella and Dutro on on vocabulary instruction, and they have the stages of teaching vocabulary, and one of the first stages is make sure they know how to say it and how they can understand, they can recognize the pronunciation. I see you nodding too, Leslie. It's so important. It's no good to know a vocabulary word if you can't say it in a way that people are going to understand you, right? And there's so much more we could do. I think we covered a lot of ground in an hour, but I invite you to take a look at some of the references I've got in the slides you'll see. These same principles and practices could work for teaching different intonation patterns, working on sentence stress. These are just some examples. So absolutely, yes, word stress, not just the ed endings. No. Let's see, anything. Oh wow, the whole question of yes, definitely with vowels, minimal para practice can be very helpful. I love the color vowel chart. Have you used the color vowel chart? Have you heard of that or know that at all? Right, where it's actually the phonemic chart that we use in linguistics, but it's a learner-friendly one where each box is a different color, and the color represents the sound of that vowel. So green, silver, so red, whatever. I don't remember all of them. And then you can say to students, what color does that sound like? Like have another association. So if you haven't check that out, the color vowel chart. So good. Well, anything else? I guess I can turn it over to Leslie and Justin if you have any closing words. I know we're at time. We're a minute after time, but I want to thank you all. But just so you know, I've got the QR code here to my slides, but I'll also share those with Leslie and Justin, and can you email those out to the group as well if they don't?
We can. Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
We'll share the recording as well once we've put it online, so you'll be able to stop things and find things. I just looked at the color chart. I've used it many times myself. You can look it up online, and there's lots of images. Go to Google Images and you'll be able to see it. I just have to say thank you to the Sophia and Joseph Aberlees Endowed Chair, because these are the people that sponsor us to be able to put on these webinars. So thank you to them. And to often to Claudia. She is here. She's actually on vacation, but she's here as well. So Claudia is the assistant dean of our English language studies. And just thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We've known each other for a long time, so this may, I feel like I'm getting older and older. But anyway, it's been great. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I always say the same thing. It's amazing when you see over 50 people come. And I know most of you have taught today as well, and some of you are going to go on to teach this evening. Just the dedication is impressive. So thank you. Thank you, Betsy. Absolutely brilliant. If you haven't read Betsy's books, please, please do.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. I had one here just this morning and it's gone. So that shows how good they are. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for your active participation in the chat. That's what makes all the difference in a webinar. I really appreciated your very, very active engagement. So please, yeah, thank you. And all the best to you and have a wonderful end to the summer. And yeah, take good care.